All right, Shalom. I want to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Shemi, Awashai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And Shalom to all the Akim out pushing the word in sincerity and in truth. And, I'm just going to do a series on Daniel's breakdown of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So, it's basically going to go into the kingdom of empires. And I'm basically going to expound through the spirit of Yahweh, Shemi, Awashai, on these kingdoms that arose and fell, pursuant to the Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Because when you go into Daniel the 2nd chapter, Daniel the 7th chapter, various other scriptures, this is a heavy prophecy. It was heavy for Nebuchadnezzar to receive this dream and for us to read about this dream in latter times, because it actually foretells the fall of major empires back then and the fall of a major empire now, which is the modern Babylon the Great, which is America. So, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it and expound on, the breakdown of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So this is Daniel 2:1. And in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Right. So the Chaldeans, which were wise men that came from the land of Chaldea, Nebuchadnezzar had hired basically to be in close grips, because they were known through their excellent wisdom and divisions and various other things, the astrology, all kind of things that they had the access to foresee, through their witchcraft. They were the mediums, of Nebuchadnezzar's, the left-hand side prophets that would actually break down dreams and visions. But this prophecy and this vision, they struggled to interpret, and it speaks about the king of Syriac, because Syriac, when you go into it in the Hebrew, it goes back to Aram, which was the native language. Basically it's it equates with Aramaic, because when Nebuchadnezzar basically came in rulership, that was the major language at that time. Hebrew wasn't the dominant language because the Hebrews weren't ruling, and I proved that through so one thing I wrote in: Syriac, also known as Syriac Aramaic or Classical Aramaic, is a dialect of Middle Aramaic. Right, and Aramaic comes from Aram, which was one of the sons. Matter of fact, just gonna type in Aram real fast, because that's where Aramaic is comes from, and I'm gonna go right back to it. Right. So Aram was one of the children of Shem. All right. You had the Elamites, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. And that's where you have the Aramaic from. All right. That's where the Aramaic stem from, which is one of the sons of Aram. All right. And Syriac is basically a son version of it. And I have it on the writing system on my phone right here. When you type in Syriac language, it basically comes from Aramaic, which when you go higher up in the Aramaic, it stems all the way up to Semitic, which goes back to Shem. All right, so continuing on, it says, Then spake the Chaldean to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The king is gone from me. The thing is gone from me. If you will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and the rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if you will not make known unto me the dream, There is but one decree for you, for ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, There is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. Right, so basically, I'm going to continue on. Verse 11. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show it before the king except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. Right, because Nebuchadnezzar had the dream, and it was something of a high importance. That's why he was so anxious and aggressively stressed out when it came to the dream, because he knew that it had something that had to be interpreted prophetically, and it was pertaining to his kingdom, but he couldn't crack the code. It was for a dream interpreter to do so, which the Chaldeans, it exceeded the wisdom that they actually had. That's why they said that it's basically in the hands of a God above, a power above. But the Most High dealing with the Israelites, the wise men of Israel, which at that time, of course, was Daniel, and various the prophets, which those are really the modernized wise men of Israel. All right. He was able to interpret the dream, Daniel in particular. All right, it says, and the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain, because Daniel was also known as one of the wise men. All right. He was in the seat of wise men, so to speak. He knew how to break down certain dreams. All right. He knew prophecy. All right. He was a all-around skillful individual when it came to the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of everything. All right. Just like Solomon. Solomon understood botany. He understood astrology, astronomy, the virtues of beasts, the reasonings of men, and so also did Daniel. All right. Continuing on, then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, Why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. So, I'm just going to jump up to the main point, going into the layout, of basically the vision that Daniel saw. I'll start at 27. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, The secret thing which the king have demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king, but there is a power in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. All right. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. All right, verse 36. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the power of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and have made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. Right. So basically, Daniel was basically expounding onto Nebuchadnezzar the dream that he had, and he basically told him he was this head of gold, which at that time it was the Babylonian Empire. It spoke about how they ruled over the kingdom of men. All right, all the way to, from the Nile River up to Middle Turkey, by the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, the Euphrates, Tigris, which this was the metropolis, so to speak. This was the epicenter of where everything went down in Babylonia. And see, you have the capital, Babylonia, which is Babylon, in the Babylonian Empire from 606 to roughly 536 BC. It was in the Ishmaelites' land, all right, all the way to Elam over in Iran, up north, so on and so forth. So the Babylonian Empire was a very, very vast empire at that time. And basically, Daniel was basically breaking down to Nebuchadnezzar the grandeur of his kingdom. All right. So, and after these shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. Right. So I really want to mainly focus on this kingdom of gold, and basically go into further proof that this kingdom is in reference to Nebuchadnezzar. Because first and foremost, Daniel already spoke in the 2nd chapter about Babylon being the kingdom of gold. But we'll see how basically Babylon came about and expanded to that kingdom of gold. But before, I'm going to go into my vision. Matter of fact, I'll start at 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Right, and when you go into the sea represents peoples, nations, and tongues. It tells you that in Revelations, the 17th chapter and the 15th verse. And the beast represents basically a nation with immoral structuring, basically not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. And you can link that up with Psalms, the 73rd chapter, when David was speaking about how foolish and how ignorant he was. And he said, I was like a beast before thee. So a beast system is a kingdom without spiritual. One major the god they worship was Marduk. All right. Think if I'm not mistaken, Baal. All right. And various other gods. And that's where I just looked up the word Belshazzar, and it goes into Baal protect the king, because Baal was one of the gods that the Babylonians worshiped. And going a little bit into Belshazzar, it says Belshazzar was the eldest son of Nabonidus, the last king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Right. So this is later on, and Nabonidus basically took reign, and this is around. It doesn't have the specific date, but his father actually, Nabonidus, ruled from 556 to 539 BC. And when you go into also Nebuchadnezzar, compound word, going back to the gods that they worship, Nebu goes back to the word Nabu, all right, which was a Babylonian god also, because Nebuchadnezzar is really a title, all right. Nebuchadnezzar meaning "O God Nabu," and just like I said, Belshazzar goes into the worship of their god Baal. All right, that's where you have also Baal and the dragon. That goes into the time of Daniel and things of that nature. So continuing on, it says, and 4 beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. These 4 beasts represent 4 kingdoms. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Right, so this kingdom that was raised up is talking about Babylon, because it's going into 4 kingdoms And the kingdom, first and foremost, is still referencing to Babylon for the fact that Assyria already fell. All right, the Assyrian Empire, they actually had the symbol of, which I'm going to go into, the statue, the lion statue with the eagle's wings. But when Babylon actually took over the Assyrian Empire, they also worshiped their gods just like they do today. All right, when Rome took over Greece, they took their gods, you know. So when Babylon actually overcame or overtoppled the Assyrian Empire and really expanded to the Babylonian Empire, that's the kingdom with the lion's wing, the lion, and it had eagle's wings. The eagles always represent exaltation. All right, and the lion represents ferociousness, vigor, and aggressiveness. You know, so, and you could prove that with Jeremiah 4:7. Jeremiah 4:7, the lion has come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. Right, and that lion that's coming out of his thicket is talking about Nebuchadnezzar when Nebuchadnezzar took down the kingdom of Judah. All right, because he was like a lion unto the people. Basically, a lion is known through their ferociousness and tearing and shredding asunder. And that's exactly what happened when Babylon came in unto the kingdom of Judah. They basically broke us up as a kingdom. And it proves that in the verses above, verse 5. Declare ye in Judah and publish in Jerusalem, and say, blow ye the trumpet in the land. The trumpet represents war. When Babylon came to take down the kingdom of Judah, because the kingdom of Israel was already taken down through the Assyrian Empire. All right, and it tells you also in Kings that the northern kingdom went to the Americas, and it tells you that also in Esdras. So when Babylon took down the Assyrians, they didn't, have the northern kingdom there. It was mainly the Assyrian Empire, and they mainly took down the tribe of Judah. Cry, gather together, and say, assemble yourselves, and let us go into the defense cities. Set up the standard toward Zion. Retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction. Right, and that evil that came from the north was Babylon. All right, the Babylonian Empire, that was that evil that came from the north, and they came and broke down and plundered Jerusalem. And when they plundered Israel, they also, shattered the temple. So going back to verse 7, I'm going to go into a little bit of commentary in Jeremiah 4:7. Bear with me. It says, the lion is, of course, the Chaldean invader, the destroyer, not of men only, but of nations. So in Daniel 7:4, the lion is the symbol of the Assyrian monarchy. The winged lions are seen in the palaces of Mosul, and Nimrod gave a special character to what, in any case, a natural metaphor. The word Gentiles answers to the meaning, but there is no special reason why it should be used here rather than nations. Right, and they spoke about how it's the Assyrian monarchy, but Assyria fell during the time of Daniel, the 7th chapter. So it's talking about Babylon that succeeded the previous kingdom, Assyria, and they basically imposed that symbol upon their nation, whether they put it on their walls, structurings, and things of that nature. All right, and I'm going to go into it. The ancient lion of Babylon on the Ishtar gate was made of molded brick with polychrome glaze and appeared along the side of the processional way in Babylon around 604 to 562 BC. So, that's the main point I want to go into. It spoke about how Jeremiah and Isaiah, prophesied that the ultimate defeat of Babylon, because Isaiah and Jeremiah, they were around during the time of the Babylonian captivity. All right, those were the prophets that prophesied the fall of Israel and to prophesy the fall of Jeremiah. All right, and same thing with Daniel, which he actually had a personal interfacing. He interacted personally with Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, and even the succeeding kingdom with Cyrus the Great. So basically these prophets were around and they foretold the visions of these individuals. So I'm gonna continue going back to matter of fact, I'm done with the 2nd chapter. I'm gonna go a little bit more into this. Daniel's the 7th chapter. Daniel 7:4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. And like I said earlier, the wings being plucked represents the fall of the kingdom. Because when you pluck something that's exalted, what's it going to do? It's going to debase itself and it's going to fall and be crushed asunder. All right. And that's exactly what happened. When Babylon was at its heights, it had an inferior kingdom that plucked it and took it out. And that's the second kingdom that's also known as a bear, which I'm going to go into another time, Lord willing. And it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. All right, so I'm going to go into basically the history of the kings in the book of Kings with Babylon, to go into the chronology and really show how it actually occurred. All right, the occurrences of when Nebuchadnezzar, this king, actually fully took down the kingdom of Judah, and this prophecy fully came to pass. Because you had Babylon was around for a number of years, you know, and this time of Babylon is known as Neo-Babylon. All right, because Babylon been around, but what made this time so pivotal and important is because the kingdom of Judah officially got taken down and the kingdom got plundered. So, the kingdom and the temple got plundered. All right, and they stole all of the jewels and the precious things out of our kingdom. So 2 Kings 24:1, in his days Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. And the Lord sent against some bands of the Chaldees, and the bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it. And why was they were able to send bands, which bands are groups of the Chaldeans, the Syrians, the Moabites, the Ammonites? Because they ruled over them. All right, they ruled over Syria, they ruled over Babylon, and they ruled over the Moabites and the Ammonites and all these different kingdoms. So it was nothing to take over a kingdom that was rebelling, you know, because they had them in subjugation, and they had imposed high taxation upon, you know, Jehoiakim and various kings of Judah, but they wasn't with it, and that's when they fully came in and spoiled Israel. All right, you read that all throughout, you know, like I said in 2 Kings. All right. Preferably, of course, you know, the 24th chapter, it goes into the Syrian captivity also in Kings. But I'm, you know, mainly going to focus on Babylon. Verse 3. Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did. All right. And also for the innocent blood that he shed, for he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon. Right. And Manasseh was one of the kings of Judah. If I'm not mistaken, he erred according to the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And that's why the Lord penalized us for the sins of the kings of Judah, you know. And I'm going to prove that. And I just went to Manasseh on my phone. It says Manasseh was the king of Judah. He was the only son of Hezekiah and his wife Hephzibah, you know. And you can read about him in 2 Kings, the 21st chapter, 2 Chronicles, the 32nd chapter, you know. So due to the fact of his foolish decision making, so to speak, you know, the kingdom fell, you know. And I'm going to continue on. It says, reading it over, surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah, to remove out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did, and also for the innocent blood that he shed, for he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his stead. And the king of Egypt came not again no more out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt. And that's exactly it. You know, they took over the Nile, you know, which was a major trading, you know, and also a water route that Egypt had control over. But when Babylon came over, they took over all the water routes, the transportation, the merchants, which the merchandise, and they basically capitalized and monopolized off of all these other nations. And anything that they had go out or come in had to be enforced upon taxation. All right. So continue on. It says, verse 8, Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months, and his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother, and his servants, and his princes, and his officers. And the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign.